So the next game, which I'll bring up in just a second, is going to be Froz versus Wizard on Lost Temple. And this one is one you definitely don't want to miss. If you don't know, I'll spoil things a little bit and say that Froz was the king of the American Brood War scene at the time. He won the WCG USA qualifier 3 years in a row to qualify for Korea, and that's taking first place in the American qualifier. Extremely solid player. He was just somebody that would consistently be at the top of every tournament, and when it came down to the major events, would almost always take first. So he was our dominant player at the time. And for those who want details on the tournament, on the stream page near the bottom, there's a link to a Team Liquid post that has links to details on the tournament. So again, this was the CompUSA $20,000 Gamefixx event. They're mentioned in patch notes 1.09. That was coordinated with Blizzard, and CompUSA had basically run a ladder that various players could compete in to try to make a top 64 bracket to compete for $20,000 in prizes. And in case anybody's wondering, before I get into this next game, it was actually quite a distributed prize pool. So you started off with the very first top player getting $10,000. But after that, the prize amounts were spread out to a great extent. So if you got top 100, you would get $50. 17 to 32nd got 100, and so on and so forth. So in other words, if you competed, you would get a piece of something if you were any good in the American scene at the time. But you did require to have a Gamefixx membership. So CompUSA was trying to basically start their own eSports league. And to compete in their tournaments, you had to pay that yearly Gamefixx membership that not only would give you access to all the tournaments that they were running, but then would also give you a discount on various gaming merchandise they were selling. So I'm going to go ahead and start up this Froz versus Wizard game. Make sure I have the right thing on the screen here. It looks like I do. So we have here as the orange Protoss in the 12 o'clock position, PoC-Squared, standing for Power of Cheese Squared. That is my younger brother's Smurf that he was playing under. Both me and him were kind of known as being kind of cheesy players, and he decided to go with that nickname to an extreme extent. And here at the unfortunate 6 o'clock position is Froz. And the reason I say unfortunate is, if you heard me earlier, this position mined at only 85% efficiency. So in other words, once he fully saturates this and has to start using these mineral patches out here in the distance, they are further away than any other base, and therefore he'll be getting less minerals per minute than a player who had spawned somewhere else on this map. So he's already starting out with a significant disadvantage, unfortunately, because the ladder maps were not balanced at this time for everybody who is playing. I revealed the entire map so you can kind of see what the Lost Temple at the time was like that we were playing on. And I'm going to go ahead and start up with some of the information about Froz and Wizard real quick. So this is Froz's player card. And for those who want to know the replay count, I have about 400 replays from this latter season. My brother and I played a ton of games, along with the grand finals that I co-casted with somebody else that'll be broadcast later. Anyway, Froz himself, again, this Terran player, the white at the bottom, who is likely going to go for a standard opening here. So he's going to go ahead and wall in his natural. Basically, he never did any cheeses, so you never had to worry about Froz doing some type of proxy barracks rush or something like that. He was a very solid player. He focused on consistency over anything else. And he finished third in this tournament. Third was worth $1,250. He also won WCG USA's 2001, 2002, and 2003 qualifier, going to the grand finals in Korea for 3 different years. His average APM of all his ladder replays at this time was 190 on the upper end of the foreigner players in the tournament. So quite good for it. This particular game, he's at 193. And I'll show off some pictures of him in just a second. Looks like Wizard's Gas just finished, and he's going for a standard cybernetic core. And again, Froz going a very standard style, never doing any type of cheese, always being very predictable. Another thing that you'll notice as well is he's also very fond of siege tanks at this period of time, so you never had to worry even about like vulture rushes or things like that. He would always go with some type of tank-based opening. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up some of his pictures from it. So this is him at 2003, and the little addition there is not by me. Somebody else did it. They were not happy that Froz beat them, so they said that Froz was summoning a demon to gain the ability to beat them in that tournament. But this was him in WCG's 2003 qualifier. Let's see what else I have here. Let's see if there's anything else going on before I continue on forward. Looks like still standard stuff. No check choice from Wizard just yet. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring up Wizard's player info card for those who don't know who he was. So Wizard, the check choice here being the Robotics Bay, by the way. We would later on in the same year go on and take second place at the WCG USA 2002 finals, losing to Froz in that event. So Froz would be first, Wizard would be second, both of them going to Korea. He would finish fifth in the this tournament itself, winning $500. So Froz finished third. He'd finish fifth in the end. Right now they're just playing the ladder, so I'm not giving you any spoilers. His average APM over his games is 144. He's playing with 146 in this particular game. And if you haven't seen it last time, this is Froz and Wizard. Froz being on the right, Wizard being in the center at WCG 2002's Grand Final. The other player there being Ware. And you can see the stylish jackets they had at the time. And then I have one additional photo to show you all after I check out if there's any other build order updates here, which just seems like a second gateway has been added. And Wizard's putting on some pressure at the front, so we'll hold off on the other photo just one moment here. So he's going to attack with that Dragoon and Zealot. This is part of Froz being predictable. So we know that he's always going to do a tank opening. We know there's no vultures. We know there's no secret stockpile of Marines or something like that. There's nothing crazy coming out. We just know he's eventually going to chase us away with a siege tank, but we can get some free damage and force him to repair the supply depot while he tries to get his build order going off. He sneaks in that Terran SCV in while that battle's going on, but this Dragoon will eventually chase it down. But he will get a good look into what Wizard's doing and realize that there's no DTs or something else coming out of him. So these units going back, and it looks like, things have stabilized, and both of them are now going to build up with Wizard going for an expansion at this point in time, realizing that Froz is going to be going for his safe siege tank play. There's no timing push coming out with that, really. And that Froz is likely going to be expanding himself, which he is right now, having built the command center up here. So because of the fact Froz was so it's a dual-edged sword. Froz was very consistent. He had a very solid style, and he can consistently win games. So because of the fact that he always played the same way, you can kind of predict what he was going to do and what his timings were like. Here comes Froz's Maynard transfer here to populate that expansion, now that he has the siege tanks up to defend it. So the picture that I promised you, I'm going to show you all what should be Wizard and Froz's profile pictures of the time. This is the most amazing photo I've ever seen. So prepare to be amazed by this photo itself. And that should be, this is from 2002 WCG's Grand Finals. They both have the best pose that you've ever seen. They're just beautiful. That's all I can say, it's just beautiful. So they got to know each other a little bit at the WCG 2002 Grand Finals, and again, Froz is basically the king of the North American scene at this point in time. So we have pretty much standard stuff going on, so Wizard can see everything with his observer. There is 2 fact come out from Froz. Again, siege tank heavy focus. There are vultures being added to the mix now. His expansion's up and well saturated and set up. Wizard has a single expansion as well. He is starting to add on a Templar archive, so that'll give him access to DTs and Templar and Psionic Storm. And the dropship will also allow him to potentially do shenanigans from the robotics facility, will allow him to utilize the fact that this is a map that has a lot of cliffs to use those units very effectively. Yeah, so for the person asking about GUR, I am talking about, I guess I should say, the United States scene. So GUR at this point was more of a Korean type of player, that he was considered more of the Korean scene. So I should say the foreign or North American scene would probably be the most accurate statement for that, because again, he won, bring up his info card again, first place in WCUSA 2001, 2002, and 2003, along with playing third in this tournament for 1,350 and highly in every other tournament that he's ever entered, basically. So the most consistent and most solid player in North American scene at the time. And it's kind of a difference. You have to understand that while there was a Korean scene up and coming at this point in time, while Koreans generally had higher APM, so Americans generally went between 150 to 200, Koreans were more 200 to 300, and were more solid and still... and we're starting to really become a phenomenon on their own. We only really encountered them most of the time at the WCG Grand Finals. So outside of WCG Grand Finals, it was kind of just tournaments for us, our smaller scene that existed still in North America. And it was just a bit of a different thing. And so basically we would have our own scene, and we would all compete and understand and know each other. And then we'd travel once a year to Korea to get our asses kicked. But... So Froz going for a lot of siege tanks and vultures, very mech heavy based build, of course. And Wizard essentially going for another expansion here at the 3 o'clock position, adding in a few more gateways with 2 dragoons to prevent anything from going to that space itself. Froz is, so yeah, just macroing right now. Both sides are just trying to get their army sizes up. Froz generally, again, is a very solid player. He's not going to want to attack before he gets higher into his macro numbers, starting to get into that 100 to 200 size army. And Wizard here is starting to get up his 3 o'clock base. So there is some harassment that he's going to do a little bit with the vultures, but it's not going to be, it's not, he doesn't do full-on attacks. So he does do harassment, does do scouting. These probes are going to go ahead and get through without anything happening to them. The spider mines, not only will they not activate on them, but being laid too late to really detect that kind of movement. There is a storm drop. So Wizard did use a storm drop down here. Didn't do a whole lot of damage, it looks like, but he's going to go for another take here. Here comes another one, maybe? Yep. Few SCVs going down from that storm drop against the side. Looks like he's going to get one more shot in. That's a good amount right there. So a good harassment by Wizard there, trying to take down the number of SCVs that were in his line at this point in time right there to slow Froz down, prevent him from getting to that massive amount that he normally would want. And Froz, realizing that his SCVs have been taken down, has decided that now is the time he has to push out. So he's moving out his army a little bit earlier than he might have planned. Wizard, seeing this army moving forward from this observer that existed, is now moving his army out to spawn. The spider mines that he had previously laid doing great work. And it looks like Froz has successfully started to siege up down here towards Wizard's new expansion. Supply counts right now are Froz at 85 and Wizard at 106. And the siege tanks and army is starting to move up to finish this off, that expansion. Wizard's trying to break down the siege line. These Templars not exactly doing much. There goes a single storm. There's a second one. Good conclave from Wizard. It looks like he may be able to break through this initial line of tanks. But while he's breaking through this initial line of tank, Froz is sieged up inside of Wizard's inside this expansion here, and is starting to take down what exists of it. But there are no vulture support, so these siege tanks are actually not going to do pretty well. There's only 3 of them to clean those up. So supply count right now is 81 to 75. Wizard has cleaned up the initial force, and now is going to try to clean up the second force. He's moving up. The Zealots will be very effective once the Vultures are taken care of, in which seems like there's only 1 left. Yep, this force should be taken out. The Nexus will fall. So without that expansion, no, they are back to the same amount of bases. And it looks like Froz has resaturated his natural base at this point in time. So a swing towards Wizard with the Storm drop. Froz moves out. Some good Spider Mine placement and timing on his attack there. And it seems like things have mostly evened out once more as Wizard is trying to reestablish this 3 o'clock base. Oof. Spider-Man ended up killing a few of his friends there. So Froz is getting an armory to be able to get some upgrades. I'm assuming Wizard is probably upgraded a little bit. Yep, he's at 1 attack. It looks like he's getting a 2nd attack right now. These 2 Dragons will prevent the run by the Vultures. Very critical that you do that, especially if you're playing StarCraft Remastered. You want to take another base that has a ramp like this. Always make sure that you block it off. Because even if a full-on attack will be able to get beyond it, just having a few units there will stop any type of harassment that is ground-based from getting through. So it looks like things have settled down a bit for the moment. It looks like 78 for Froz, 107 for Wizard. Froz is starting to retake the center again. And this is all part of Froz's overall style, is to mostly try to use the center of the map as effectively as possible to build up a good defensive position in that LT center, Lost Temple center. He's taking the, I think that's the 9 o'clock position there. Meanwhile, Wizard's attacking in. Zealots moving forward. It looks like it's hard to tell what's going to happen here. This storm is finally going off on those 2 tanks on the left. A bunch of Templars by themselves out here trying to be heroes. Only a few Dragoons and Zealots remain. It looks like this will be cleaned off, so Wizard has successfully retaken the center of the map, repealing Froz's forces, and his observer has seen Froz's new expansion. And it looks like, yeah, so this single Dragoon is going to do a showdown with that tank. He came out ahead, so good for him. Wizard is not only going to have this space up here, which he has not been able to resaturate since Froz had killed it, but also has taken the natural of that starting position. Trying to keep ahead in bases. Generally at this time, you wanted to be ahead of the Terror in terms of bases as a Protoss player. This is especially because of the fact that we hadn't discovered how to use Arbiters yet. We thought Arbiters were kind of a junk unit, so you'll never see a Protoss player during this time period really build an Arbiter or use Stasis, because it was considered an ability that just wasn't worthwhile. Similarly, you'll rarely see a Terran player that builds Science Vessels. EMP was not considered worthwhile either. So kind of an unusual thing that 2 units that became kind of crucial in this matchup at this time period were never tapped or never used. So Froz once again trying to retake the center of the map. And Wizard army is moving across, looking like he's going to potentially be regrouping together to try to get his army centralized rather than split apart, realizing he can't quite get out through here because of the fact that Froz has now successfully blocked off a ground-based entrance to that expansion. And here comes another engagement. It's once more with Wizard trying to break through the middle of Froz's defensive position that he has established. A lot of blue goo. It looks like that it's very close. Storm goes off on a single tank. It looks like Wizard will once again repel Froz's forces and retake map control. So again, a very much back and forth match. You have the Terran player consistently trying to get in that strong defensive position in the center, while the Protoss continually trying to stay up on bases while continually trying to crush any type of sustained push the Terran may try to actually get into motion. It looks like Froz is at 83 compared to Wizards 116, which is pretty standard for this matchup. Only at 2-0 at the moment. And it looks like Wizard may be giving another attempt to trying to take out this expansion that Froz has maintained at the 9 o'clock position. Froz, meanwhile, is taking that opportunity to once again try to push out a little more conservatively this time, not quite as deep into the center of the map, as he tries to take the mineral-only natural of his main. Wizard decides against doing a direct attack and instead is now dropping and shuttling over units to the mainland of Froz's base, trying to get beyond that wall off. And he's going to try to do a pincer move to try to get through this area. Actually, I guess he did not bring up this force. He's only going to do a one-sided attack. So this should be very effective. There's not much here that Froz has for defenses. He's really relying on that wall off. But he is going to be able to save the majority of the SCVs, it looks like. And his mineral, looks like he's going to probably transfer all these SCVs to his mineral only, as the mineral only is about to come up in line, and this looks like it's pretty much going to be lights out for that previous Terran expansion. Meanwhile, Froz is pushing forward with his change line, sieging up across the map. Even building in Terran supply depots in the middle of the map in order to reduce the amount of conclave that Wizard will be able to get when he tries to kill this push. So it's a very strong push coming out of Froz, while Wizard's units here are still cleaning up the remainder of that what used to be that base there. So Froz is trying to take a base for a base. Wizard's coming in with his forces. Again, another engagement. This supply depot is splitting him up though. Spider mines are good. And it looks like there's not going to be enough of the orange here in order to clean up these tanks. So it looks like Froz is actually going to hold this time. So, yeah, so Froz is going to hold. He's at 92. Wizard is at 100 food supply, so pretty even on food at the moment. And it doesn't look like Wizard's going to be able to remove Froz from his current position. Froz going for starports now, starting to pump out some dropships, adding in another element to his gameplay. Again, there's not going to be any science vessels. He's just using it to get dropships as science vessels weren't considered worth it at the time. And it looks like, yeah, so Wizard's just trying to regroup his forces, trying to build up enough forces to repel this attack. He's trying to attack into it while it's on siege, but Froz just has so much numbers here, so many tanks, that it doesn't matter whether they're sieged or not. Wizard just doesn't have the manpower to break through. Froz looks like he's going to push up into Wizard's 3 o'clock expansion now once more. And it looks like, yeah, so this is going to be quite a strong push by him. Again, I'll bring up the title card for Froz. So you have a very strong Terran player who is once again asserting his dominance as to why he is so dangerous in the late game and why he knows how to consistently put on the pressure and consistently have the ability to move his forces around in a very intelligent manner to ensure that he wins in the long run, even if he's always predictable in the early game. So it looks like Wizard's base up here has mostly fallen. He only has a few remaining probes left to mine some gas out of it. His numbers have fallen to 61 compared to Froz's 101. Froz doesn't have many bases. Again, his previous base here haven't been destroyed. He is going to replenish it though, and he has taken Wizard down to only a single mining base at this point in time. So things are looking bad. Wizard's going to try to clean up this push. and recover this base, which has had most of its probes killed already. But Froz is not done yet. He is rebuilding. He is macroing. He's keeping his minerals low. And it looks like he will probably follow this up, I assume, relatively shortly. Nope, it looks like he's just going to play conservatively. So he's going to see these probes, and you see transfers of these probes here from to kill. Oof. That was quite overkill on that Dragoon. So Froz, again, having dropships now, is going to go ahead and start utilizing his dropship additions. He's also starting to build some TN wraiths, and you may be thinking that's odd. Why would he be building those? That is simply because Wizard is known as a player in the late game who, when he's behind, will try to get back into it with carriers. So he's building them mainly as a preventative measure in case Wizard has hidden some carriers somewhere or has the island bases that he doesn't know about or something else. So he basically, Froz knows at this point that he's in a commanding lead and is just trying to eliminate any way Wizard can come back. And he just knows the ways that Wizard likes to come back because we played each other so many times, or they played each other so many times. So he's at 132, 91 food, so definitely a commanding position for Froz at this point. He has the map control, he has more mining bases. Froz is not utilizing this new one that he's made just yet, but he doesn't really need it. He knows that all he has to do is prevent Wizard from getting any more bases and just keep pushing forward, keep making sure that he doesn't lose a battle, and Froz knows that he has this game in the bag. So yeah, Froz is pushing forward. He's at the center of the map. He's got a few cloaked wraiths, which he's going to use to actually take out the shuttle. And again, they weren't quite for the shuttle. They were more there for a potential carrier switch, since siege tanks and vultures can't attack air. So it just makes sure that Wizard could not have been going for carriers and come up with a few carriers to try to push him back. And he doesn't have to worry about stasis again because stasis didn't exist. So he doesn't have to worry about clumping siege tanks or things like that because it's not something that Wizard would use at this time because nobody thought it was useful. He's transferring his SCVs. Wizard only really has this mining base, and his natural is almost gone at this point in time. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up their player cards one last time as the game is winding down and they enter the end game here. So that was Froz. Would finish third for $1,250 in the actual bracket phase of this after the ladder ended. Had won WCG USA World Cyber Games USA's qualifier in 2001, 2002, and 2003 to qualify for the grand finals. Had an average APM during this ladder of 190, one of the highest at the time, and it was a 190 APM that was pretty realistic. He didn't have a ton of redundant actions. He was really quite fast. At the top end of any foreigner at the time. And his opponent, Wizard, again, would take second place in WCG USA 2002. So later on this year, they would meet each other again in the grand finals of the WCG USA qualifier, where Froz would beat Wizard. Both of them would still go to Korea, but Froz ended up taking that game for the first place spot and additional prize money at that event. And Wizard would finish fifth. So Froz finished third for $1,250. Wizard would finish fifth for $500. And once again, their greatest photo ever together is right there with Wizard on the right and Froz on the left. And that was from WCG 2002's Grand Finals. So Froz right now is just trying to close it out, make sure that he has the a safe push. He doesn't want to do anything stupid. He doesn't want to lose all of his units or something like that. He knows Wizard only has one mining base left compared to his two in already established position from the battles he won previously. Wizard's down to 42 food compared to Froz's 149. So yeah, you can see the kind of situation Wizard finds himself in right now. It's just not a good one. This is Hero DT though. He believes he can do it. Single one here. Oh! He tried though. He tried hard. So yeah, so cleaning up with the last mining base of Wizard. This was it for Wizard's resources as this food drops all the way down to 28. Never a good sign when you have no mining bases. Frozy's even added in Terran Goliaths. Again, anything you can think of to try to counteract whatever Wizard might be doing. He's just mixing up his unit forces now, making sure his composition can handle anything Wizard could possibly throw at it. A few Dragoons died, and that'll be it. So that was Froz versus Wizard on LT. The resources mined were relatively the same, but which is actually a bad thing at that time. As I mentioned, you always wanted to be one base up on a Terran because back then we didn't know how to use stasis or other ways of making the battle against Terran more fair. So you always wanted to have more resources spent in your games against Terran, or to have more units, more cannon fodder to throw at that siege tank and vulture line. So game 8 is coming up with a member of Liquid Cobalt versus myself on one of two possible maps. So if you want to go ahead and vote on that, go to Team Liquid. There is a link underneath the stream to where that voting is, and take a vote on those games. Go ahead and start that match with whatever won in about 5 minutes. So a 5-minute break, and then we're going to continue on with Liquid Cobalt versus myself. And I'll also add inside of the away message a bit.ly link to where the Team Liquid thread is for anybody who might be joining that doesn't know where that is. So 1 second on that. Okay, and I just need to add this as a window source. All right, everybody, I'll see you in about 5 minutes.